Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in. So today we have a full show of computer and technology news. You'll, of course, links in the show notes as after the show when we put them up. Yesterday we had a very, very fun guest with Purism. We had the CEO and founder on, and it was a very interesting conversation, not only about the products that Purism makes, but also about data privacy and data rights in general. If you didn't get a chance to catch that, I'd highly recommend it. And honestly, the best way is probably the podcast, because obviously if you are listening to us live on IRN, we thank you so much. But hey, the podcast after the live show is one of the best ways to catch Computer America. Now, let's just go ahead and say computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes, recent articles, recent reviews. We should have a couple more articles and reviews going up this week. We will let you know here on the air when they're posted so that you can go check them out. But yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we get into this. Here we go. So I think our first story, and this is something that I actually saw on the 6 o'clock news or whatever yesterday, national news, and I was so perturbed by the coverage that that the media was giving this, that I had to do it. When I saw an article here that was just posted a couple of hours ago, I wanted to kind of give my own take on this. So for those of you who didn't catch yesterday's news, it had to do with digital assistants, including the likes of Google, Siri, Alexa, and so on and so forth. They can be quote-unquote hijacked with a $14 laser pointer to open garage doors, start cars, and shop online. Essentially, anything that your digital assistant can do for you, someone could do with a laser pointer. To an extent, that there's a huge asterisk in there, but let's go ahead and get into this. I think that the research is very, very interesting, and I really do hope that they continue this line of research that they're doing so that, hey, we can better protect these devices. Is it an actual problem? That's where I think a lot of news organizations would have you believe that, yes, it's a problem, even though, no, it's not really a problem. So this is coming to us from Business Insider, though, as I said before, a lot of different organizations have picked this one up. Researchers say that they have found a way to hijack voice assistants from the major tech firms using a cheap laser. That's right. And as the article states, laser pointers are more than just for confusing your cats. A team of researchers from Tokyo University of Electrocommunications and the University of Michigan, i.e. MIT, discovered that you can hijack voice-enabled devices by shining a laser at them. And yeah, this part of the research is very cool. They found that the microphone in some of the most popular smart speakers on the market interpreted bright light of the laser as sound. And just goes to show how sensitive these sensors are. That they're able to pick up, strobing lights, or in this case, strobing laser pointers, and they're able to say, hey, this is a voice, this is someone speaking. But they tested popular smartphone speakers, all of the major ones, and guess what? They all failed. Although I will say that their list of devices included the home device from Google, various Amazon Echo devices, Apple HomePod, Portal speaker from Facebook, and which runs Alexa, and more. They also tested all the major smartphones. They found that all of them were vulnerable to the attack in varying degrees, and they were able to hijack the tablets, phones, and speakers from some distance and through Windows. I think that's the part that got people's attention, because it almost seemed like they were going to hijack your smart speaker from your living room window, and they were going to unlock your door with a $14 laser pointer. Not so much. Let's see. So the would-be hijackers would need to recreate a person saying a wake-up command to wake up an assistant before they could carry out any such attack. And that's the part that kind of got to me, is that they said that they use recently affordable laser pointers, anywhere from $14 to $18 to carry out the attacks, and that the speakers, though to give these speakers specific instructions, the laser pointers had to be paired with a $28 sound amplifier and a device called a laser driver to control the intensity of the beam, which cost about $340. So altogether, if memory serves, it costs about $1,000, given all the hardware to do that. And not only that, it takes some very good science to do this, to actually strobe the light, to the point where you are waking up digital assistants, and then not even waking up digital assistants, but as you can see here on the video portion, they're giving it commands like open the garage door and so on and so forth. And to do that, you have to use not only this laser driver to control the intensity of the beam, but then a program, and have the knowledge to actually program the laser to give these commands. Overall, I don't think your average criminal has any way of doing this. And then even if your average criminal does, $1,000 worth of hardware and some good old-fashioned research and some trial and error and getting into the window and setting up your tripod with the high-powered laser, and hopefully the neighbors don't notice that you are putting on what looks like a Whitesnake concert and in front of these people's houses, and they've never seen you before because you're trying to break into a stranger's home. All of this put together, and then there's a rock laying there on the sidewalk or next to the sidewalk, because we all know we keep our sidewalks very, very clean. You find a rock next to your sidewalk, and you bash in the window next to the front door, and you reach in and you unlock the door. No digital assistant hijacking required. This is very much a proof of concept. And by the way, they have some of the statements from Google and from Amazon, including, quote, "We are closely reviewing this research paper. Protecting our users is paramount, and we're always looking for ways to improve the security of our devices," which is Google's way of saying, all right, we're not going to change anything. Even though they proved that this is possible, Google's not going to change anything about their devices. And then Amazon is also taking a closer look at the security of their devices. They're saying that we are reviewing this research and continue to engage the authors to understand more about their work. Just overall, like the way that the media, that the media in general kind of took this was, your device is going to be hijacked by a laser, and it's just some kid with a laser standing in the window, kind of strobing it. And it's like, no, it takes very precise hardware and very precise circumstances done in this research paper to do this kind of thing. And not even the companies whose products are being hijacked are even worried about it. Not even Google or Amazon. They are going to be changing nothing. They're not issuing a recall. They're not issuing an update. This is just life. And overall, it's like one of those things where you could brute force, let's say, a 256 AES encrypted password, but a traditional computer would take you, like, was it 12,000 years to break through that? Kind of the same thing. The means are there, but the odds that someone's going to go through the effort, that's probably not there. So that was the first article I really wanted to cover, and just overall, I don't see that happening, that people are going to be doing that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on here. Let's see. So tons of different stories, and a lot of them are kind of legalese oriented. I'll try to break them up in between to, kind of keep this from being a strictly policy show. But let's go ahead and get into our first one. And how about this one? This has to do with Congress and Mozilla Firefox, who is fighting the good fight. And just, things are looking pretty daunting when it's the U.S. government and Congress against Mozilla and Google, two of the largest internet browsers out there. And they're sending representatives to Congress because internet service providers, your Charters, your Spectrums, your Comcast, your AT&T, so on and so forth, they are muddying an issue called, I believe it's HTTPS over DNS, or no, the other way around. DNS over HTTPS, and I believe they call that DOH, I believe is the abbreviation, because it's an abbreviation of an abbreviation containing another abbreviation. It just makes a lot of sense. So DOH, DNS over HTTPS. And really what that comes down to is that when you connect to a DNS provider, your internet provider, your internet service provider, can see which ones you are using. As in, yes, they're already tracking your internet packets, and that's a whole separate issue. But this is knowing which websites you're visiting by which domain name servers you are actually accessing and using to break down your request. It's a way that internet providers, like right now, if there was a man-in-the-middle attack and hackers or anyone who's looking to spy on you were able to get between you, your computer, and your DNS, then they'd be able to see exactly which websites you went to and your full browser history, everything like that. Google and Mozilla have found a way to better encrypt that, or encrypt that at all even, and a better, maintain your privacy when you're using their services. So obviously for an internet browser, this is a no doubt good thing for them. And because it's simple to do, it's good for their consumers. The only problem is that ISPs would lose the ability to monitor which DNS servers that you use, and then even if they knew which ones you use, which requests that you give them would be encrypted. And that just further infringes on your internet service provider's ability to monitor what you do online and all that kind of thing. So let's go ahead and get into this, because this gets a little muddy, and I think that's a pretty good overview. But let's go ahead and say that DNS over HTTPS helps keep eavesdroppers from seeing what DNS lookups your browsers are making. That's the intelligent way to say what I was trying to say earlier. This can make it more difficult for ISPs or other third parties to monitor what websites you visit. And by the way, other third parties could be hackers, could be advertisers, many different third parties. So they said that, unsurprisingly, our work on DOH has prompted a campaign to forestall these privacy and security protections, as demonstrated by the recent letter to Congress from major telecommunications associations. That letter contained a number of factual inaccuracies. And as Melter Snowflakes, kind of said in the chat room right now, ISPs relying to Congress. What is this? Yeah. We are seeing a pretty systemic problem of ISPs, and either this is through lying to the Federal Communications Commission or lying to Senate about how many people they're actually servicing and how many low-income people they're actually helping through their efforts and provide good, reliable broadband access, or even just general accessibility to broadband access, has been lied about in the past. ISPs are actually getting very good at lying to Congress about this. It's a problem. So they said that ISPs complain about a plan that doesn't exist. Let's see. They said that the focus of lobbying effort has been on using Google as a boogeyman, given a lot of the antitrust concerns that exist today, to drive a lot of uncertainty about the potential implications of DNS over HTTPS. What they're saying there is that ISPs are concerned that they would not be able to monitor or track or essentially harvest data from their customers, and that by Google doing this, and again they're leaving Mozilla completely out of this, even though they're the ones doing it too. Google is the bigger enchilada. They're saying that by Google doing this, Google will be the only one to have access to which websites you visit and that cache of data that the ISPs are just lusting over, and that would give Google an even bigger stranglehold on the flow of data and consumer data in general. And ISPs are saying this is a bad move for consumers because Google would be the only one allowed to harvest the data and not everyone else. So here's the thing. Google doesn't even really want the data either. I mean, Google already handles so much of the data. They have other ways of getting this, and this would actually stop them from being able to do this as well. And so because of that, it's strictly a security upgrade. Google doesn't even need the data that they're claiming they're going to have a monopoly over, and ISPs really don't need it either. They're already tracking they have packet sniffers. They monitor internet traffic. Trust me, actually I should not say that. Please don't download an illegal movie and see if you don't get a letter from your ISP saying, hey, cut that out. It happens all the time, and they don't need this particular technology to do that. It's just another way to harvest another sort of data. And by the way, I don't even know why ISPs, even need that kind of thing, because I thought they made money off of me paying them every single month, but I digress. All that and more just means that one side is painting Google as this giant, untrustworthy company that's just looking to steal all the data and not let anyone else have any data. While the other side is Google and Mozilla saying that the ISPs are lying and manipulating to Congress so that they can keep their personal data abusing powers intact. So, let's see. Skimming through the article here, let's see if there's anything else to mention, because, again, the gist of this is that ISPs are lying, and trust me, I think that the antitrust stuff with Google and, and everything that Google is, we had that conversation yesterday with our guest. Yeah, there are antitrust issues. Is this one of them? I really don't think so. So Mozilla answers other questions about the DNS over HTTPS over in their Firefox FAQ. Mozilla's policy also forbids blocking or filtering content except when authorized by users or required by law. Mozilla further requires a public privacy notice that details the DNS provider's data retention practices, as well as annual transparency reports that document how the DNS provider will handle law enforcement requests. Overall, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and leave that there. I'm wondering, it's even if somehow Congress legislated on something that they're not getting a full picture of from the ISPs, and again, this is the idea of DNS over HTTPS, it's a technology that's still going to be coming. It's a technology that improves the security for all internet users, and it's something that now that HTTPS and HTML5 are, kind of the lay of the land, there's no reason not to do it. Like it's not going to take some kind of massive infrastructure change. It's not going to take some massive undertaking to switch over. It's just kind of flipping a switch over on their end. It's changing the back end, and it's encryption afforded by our upgrade to HTTPS. So there's no reason not to do it, but at the same time, if they legislate that they shouldn't do it, I think it's still going to happen one way or another down the line. So let's go ahead and continue on. And like I said, we have some more policy ones. We're going to be, kind of dicing it up here and there. Let's go ahead and talk about, this one's fun. This is from a company I haven't heard of in quite a while, although they were all the rage like a decade ago. I actually had a college professor who went to every single class. I don't know if he was just so busy and needed the speed, or if he just liked looking like a dork, but he rode a Segway everywhere. He was one of those college professors, and man, was he good at controlling his Segway. Now, Segway, they have a new product coming out. Their first electric dirt bikes arrive in early 2020. Check this out. And honestly, they look really cool. Like, they look kind of like a mountain bike, obviously. Look much sleeker than any dirt bike I've ever ridden on. And I've ridden on ones of dirt bikes. They look really nice. They really do. And of course, they are electric. They are, fully self-contained. So, hey, Segway. Segway 9bot technically makes electric vehicles that go outside, but now it has machines designed explicitly for outdoor expeditions. And they have 2 dirt e-bike models that are billed as cross between conventional dirt bikes and mountain bikes. Oh, so that, of course, explains the model. They definitely do look like an e-bike. We used to talk about e-bikes all the time here on the show when we had a particular correspondent, but this looks to be a little bit higher powered. They said that the first of the two, the X160 as opposed to the X260, the X160 is a smaller bike meant for places where agility matters more than power. It only has an estimated 4-mile range and 31 miles per hour top speed, but it might be better for maneuvering on twisty trails thanks to its speed. The other one, the X260, is considerably more powerful with a 74-mile range and a 46 mile per hour top speed. And although its 19-inch wheels make it clear that this is for open-air environments. So, both bikes launched in the first quarter of 2020, 3,000 and 4,500. I don't even know if that's good. I don't even know, as far as e-bikes go, if that's good or not. But, hey, it kind of answers that question. What the heck has Segway been up to? So there you go. Article from Engadget. If you want to check that out, we'll include it in the show notes. I definitely like the idea of e-bikes. I mean, kind of around where I live, there are a lot of mountains, and I would love to go biking for exercise, or, well, mainly just for exercise, or even just for getting around. But I really do feel like I would die if I had to climb a mountain either on a bike, which seems very improbable because I think going negative speed up a mountain is literally counterproductive. But I think with an e-bike, it might be possible to even get me up a mountain, although that would be a Herculean feat in itself. So let's go ahead and keep things going here. Let's talk about, this might be the biggest news story of the day. It's not the end-all be-all, so just to make that clear, but it's a huge step and a huge hurdle that Sprint and T-Mobile had to overcome. The FCC, yes, that Federal Communications Commission, the one with the Jeep pie, the one that we've been complaining about for the past 4 years, the FCC formally approves the T-Mobile Sprint merger, saying that the deal still faces a lawsuit filed by state attorneys generals, and you can see why state attorney generals would be concerned about the lack of competition that would happen if T-Mobile and Sprint were to become one company. So, today, the Federal Communications Commission formally approved the T-Mobile Sprint merger. The decision comes after a drawn-out and sometimes contentious review of T-Mobile's $26.5 billion bid to merge with Sprint. And they said that the FCC believes that the deal will close the digital divide and advance 5G in the US. Let's pause right there. Take that sentence, and this is where the FCC, this is why the FCC is approving this. Close the digital divide and advance 5G in the US. Two things. First one, digital divide. America's been doing pretty good with the digital divide as it is. We are not as good as some European countries, and other countries such as, of course, South Korea are much better when it comes to wireless speed and things like that. But I will say America's doing pretty good with the digital divide. There are certain segments of the population and certain areas within the US that lack the development of those networks. Will having T-Mobile and Sprint merge correct those? Not really, because most of the coverage that happens out there comes from Comcast and AT&T. Sprint and T-Mobile are far third and fourth, and I think even pooling their resources together, they're probably not looking like they're looking to get into the markets where people pay a lot of money so that they can, of course, make money. They're not looking to go into rural Mississippi and get their networks finally fleshed out. They're not looking to go into the ghettos of Chicago to really boost their network speeds. Baltimore and their suburbs are not going to get better coverage just because T-Mobile and Sprint are going to merge. No, in fact, you'll see more development in places where development is already happening, because those are seen as the money-making sectors. Downtown New York, San Francisco, Austin, Texas, so on and so forth, places where people buy a lot of phones and they want that good cell service. So hey, guess what? That's where they're going to put their service so that, people will buy phones on their network. They've also pledged to, and actually let's just stick to the sentence here real quick. The second one, advanced 5G in the US. I am so disillusioned with 5G. I love the promises. I love the technology. The standard allows for, I think it's like 100 gigabytes up and down wirelessly. That's amazing. That's better. That's better than like 99% of people's kind of landlines. That's better than 99% of people's cable that comes into their house for their internet. It's like, other than like dedicated fiber, it's some of the best out there. But the problem is, unless you put in an antenna, I think it's like every 100 yards, like every one football field, you will not get good enough service for a 5G compatible device, of which there are only currently, I think, like 2 phones on the market that support 5G. It's a technology that will be coming down the road. Within a year or two, many devices will support 5G. Unless people are willing to put up with the eyesore, and not only that, pay the price for installing up to, I think it's like 4 or 5 times as many 5G cell towers as there are 4G LTE towers, which, think of the real estate in cities and downtowns and even just in suburbs and more rural places. People just won't have access to 5G anytime soon. Anytime. It would take such a massive investment from these companies for something that, unless a consumer has purchased a phone within the past 2 months, they're probably just not even ready for it. I don't see why development of 5G is so important, because it's going to take so long to get here. We need other technologies to really, bring our digital, close our digital divide. And like I said, it has to do with bringing reliable cell service to the masses. So let's go ahead and continue here, saying that T-Mobile and Sprint have committed to deploying 5G to cover 97% of Americans within 3 years. I've heard those lies before. They've also pledged to provide 90% of Americans with access to mobile service with speeds of at least 100 megabits per second within 6 years. Think about that. 90% of Americans with access to mobile service with speeds of at least 100 megabits per second, and yet they also want, and by the way, that was, again, within 6 years. and then 97% with 5G within 3 years. I don't know what that means. It seems like one is completely redundant with the other. They're promising a much faster service in half the time frame to a larger percent of Americans, as opposed to their second point, which is 90% of Americans to service speeds. I just don't get it. So obviously, let's see, just real quick, I probably won't see 5G or fiber in my lifetime in my area. Yeah, and obviously, for we're not really sure where you live, but unless you live in a major metropolitan city, unless you go out and purchase your own 5G antenna, which is going to be a thing, and people should definitely be aware of that, you probably won't see fiber, because running fiber is, I've heard estimates of people saying, yeah, sure, we'd love to run fiber to your house. You just have to get it up to your doorstep, pay us $600,000 to get that line laid. Internet companies are not a charity. Like that's the problem with private companies providing something that should be a utility. If this was happening with water or electricity, there would be heck to pay. Sorry about my language, but there would be heck to pay if we required this of water. But at the same time, we're allowing private companies who have a lot of profit in mind to prioritize who deserves what internet. Even though internet has become our way of working, shopping, ordering our medication, paying our bills, so on and so forth, it's about as much as a utility as it is water, and we've been saying that for years and years and years. AT&T is still stuck at DSL. I think I heard about a technology that was supposed to boost DSL past 6 megabits. I think in some places you can get like up to 18, but still, it's atrocious what some of these places can do. So obviously, according to and actually let's finish up that paragraph. The FCC's approval is conditional on these promises, and the parties could be fined over $2 billion if they don't meet those goals. Here's my problem with it. That fine seems really, really small. The parties could be fined $2 billion if they don't meet those goals. And then think about this at the same time. They're paying $27 billion to merge. What is the difference between $26.5 billion or $27 billion, $26.5 billion and just tacking on $2 billion at the end, kind of on the back end in back rooms and board meetings, and saying, we're going to sell all of these sweet lies, and we just have to find a way to come up with $2 billion more dollars on top of our other 26.5 that we've already raised, and everything's going to go smoothly regardless. Boy, is that a price tag I am sure they are willing to pay, even if that way they don't even have to come close to what they promised, and they still get out for a fraction of what it costs to set off this whole thing. So with that being said, and yeah, I definitely agree with that one for it. But according to the commission, the merger will not harm competition, which that should be everyone's concern. We're going from four major carriers in this country to 3 with the Sprint and T-Mobile. And don't get me wrong, one of the conditions of this merger was that T-Mobile, and this was like the biggest win-win, and I have no idea why they let them do this. They were going to cut off their, their kind of prepaid upfront payment system that was focused on lower income consumers. Obviously less profitable. There's not huge margins on selling big pricey phones. And Sprint was going to, I think, further develop that part. It's like that. It's like both of the company's lesser profitable parts were going to be split and merged together to form another fourth company, which would be, again, kind of quote unquote, why the competition would not decrease. but no one's really using that. The people who use that have to use it. That's their only option. They're using that because of the lack of competition, and the prices are too high to go to other places. So it's crazy. Though several state attorney generals and a couple of FCC commissioners have argued otherwise, which I think everyone should argue that going from 4 to 3 is bad for competition. And while the parties promise that their merger will accelerate the availability of some form of 5G for some Americans, history teaches us that the most likely effect of this merger will be higher prices and fewer options for all Americans. And that was from Commissioner Jeffrey Starks. Just from what I know, yeah, that seems to be it. So it's not surprising that the FCC formally approved the merger today. The deal has been approved by the Department of Justice. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai endorsed it this summer, and last month the commission voted. Normally, in the case of this deal, would close. However, there's a chance that some of the lawsuits filed by the state attorney generals may put a stop to it. I saw this when it happened with, I think it was Charter and Time Warner, which, up until that point, I didn't know anything about Charter. But then Charter came out to be the bigger of the two entities. Charter Cable and Time Warner Cable, they serviced very different parts of the country. But the problem is that the reason that they got approved, Time Warner and Charter, was that they weren't servicing the same customers. So they became this mega corporation, and they are now the largest provider of cable services to the country strictly through acquisition. And I don't think it improved really anything when it came to the availability of home internet access, but it definitely made them a lot of money. And it allowed even the threat of competition to go away, because now it's suddenly one entity that owns more than half of the home internet users. They're massive, and I really feel like when something that big is at stake and so much profit is possible, it's hard to imagine where either through lobbying efforts or just constant, kind of deals that have to be struck down by the FCC and waiting for legislation to, kind of stop, it really seems like they're going to be forced down our throats either way. These acquisitions are going to happen one way or another. And whatever legal or monopolistic qualms we have about it, I feel like those get pushed aside very, very quickly. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Let's do something a little bit more, hopefully, fun. Let's see. How about we talk about, some good uses for, I just had reopen, close tab. There we go. Okay. Not that one. This one's good, but there's another asterisk here. And I hate that I have to keep playing the side of the rational person in the room, because, boy, does it look fun to be irrational. So this is an article about the 4-day work week. If you think about it, or not even, whatever it was, 100 years or so ago, we implemented the 40-hour work week. And now there's a lot of rumblings from a lot of different sectors, all over the globe, talking about the idea of moving to a 4-day work week, where either you would be working for 10 days, which would keep the 40-hour work week, or in a lot of other cases, they're looking at the idea of a 4-day work week, but you would still keep your 8 hours. So you'd be working 32 hours, you'd still be keeping your full set of pay, but you'd be getting a 3-day weekend every single week. And the selling point with this is that, yes, even though you are getting less working hours out of your employees for the same amount of money, which seems like a huge hit to private industry, you would be recouping that cost in that your productivity of your workers, the fact that they only have to be in there for 4 days, they would sit down and focus on their work instead of twiddling their thumbs and waiting for the weekend, because they get in there and they would do it. And that's the promise, is that a better work-life balance. The ability to have a social life and not just be completely revolved around work is a very attractive thing. So this idea is where we come into this article from The Verge, and it has to do with Microsoft and their Japanese division, Microsoft Japan. 4-day working week trial led to productivity improvements. There are some issues with this, but overall it looks very promising. Let's go ahead and let's see. Sorry about that. Okay, let's just go ahead and say that Microsoft Japanese division found that reducing its working week from 4 days throughout the month of August caused an increase in productivity and a decrease in cost. Sounds good. Sales per employee rose by 40% compared to the same period in the previous year as a result of the company's Work-Life Choice Challenge Summer 2019. Microsoft is not the only organization to try the idea of a shorter working week. New Zealand, one trust management company trialed a 4-day work week over 2 months and found that staff focus improved and stress decreased. In the UK, one London-based science research foundation explored plans to give workers Friday off without any pay penalty, but scrapped the idea due to its complexity. A 4-day working week was also the focus of a recent study commissioned by the UK's Labour Party. So the Microsoft trial is especially, the Microsoft trial is especially interesting in the context of Japan's notoriously long working hours. I've actually heard about that. This is all hearsay, secondhand, so on and so forth. Japan has a real problem with appearing to be very fastidious in your work, but overall suffering from fatigue. This means that if you are seen as an employee who gets in every day at 5 a.m., even though you're supposed to be there at 8 a.m., and you don't leave until 8 p.m. when you're supposed to be leaving at 5 p.m., if you can be the first there and the first out, the first one at the office and the last one to leave, even if you don't actually get anything done, if your results are really, really bad, looking like you are working is more important in Japan than it is to actually get the work done. You know, we all know that one employee who looks like they work a lot, but then when you really review the work that they've done, you're like, why did this take them 8 hours? I could have done this in 2. Take that entire mentality and apply it to the economy of Japan. And for people who, definitely from Americans who go over there to work a bit, they get into situations where, like Americans do, we get into the office at 9 a.m. and we clock out at a hard 5 p.m. Americans are seen as lazy. That's one of the problems, is that we give what the contract says that we have to give, and we are as productive as we need to be. It's a very toxic work-life balance, and for Microsoft Japan to pioneer this kind of study and to find such good results, it's really promising for a lot of people over there. So they said that the trial, which also included limited meetings to just 30 minutes, led to cost savings for Microsoft. Electricity use declined by 23%, and paper printing decreased by 60%. Employees were encouraged to use use tools like Microsoft Teams to communicate rather than holding meetings, and 92% of employees reported that they were pleased with the reduced hours. Who are the 8 employees who are saying, man, if only I could work more? So weird over there. So weird. Despite apparently finding large success in the pilot program, they said that it's unclear whether the initiative will be repeated on a long-term basis. They said that later this year, Microsoft Japan will be conducting another work-life challenge, encouraging employees to take time off in a more flexible and smarter way. However, the company has yet to announce its plans for a U.S. workforce. So here's my asterisk. Here is my asterisk for this entire story. Of course, workers like this, and of course, they found increased productivity because they knew it was only going to be the month of October, the month of August. They were given 5 additional days off for free. Of course, stress went down. They were able to stay home and, be with their family or just relax. And of course, they were more productive because there was a very finite scope. That's like, hey, we just have to be productive for these 5 weeks to make it look good. I think that this is good, and so far everything is pointing the way that you want them to, but it is indicative of we need to try this on a longer term basis and on more employees and in more places than just one company in Japan. More studies need to be done. Obviously, some professions would not be it would not be possible for some professions to do this kind of thing. But overall, I hope that more trials and more studies are done on a 4-day work week, because boy, does that sound amazing. I really wish Computer America would implement that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So, let's see. So, how about and just real quick. Let's see. So I took Monday off. One of the salesmen wanted my home number because it was so hard to get IT from the home office to respond. Asked if he was going to pay the phone bill. He said no. He said, okay, thanks. I'll see you Tuesday. And instead, he stayed home watching movies. Yeah. All right, last point, and then we'll move on. Just having the ability as an employee, especially because our audience is very tech savvy. I'm sure a lot of you work in IT and, have what you do is in your brain. It's not, to other people, it's kind of like an artist, where to other people it's like, oh, it's just paint. Paint costs so much and it's just your time. It's whatever. They don't want to pay you what you're actually worth, because like an artist, hey, you spend a lot of time perfecting your skills, working and trial and error, and really you're paying for the culmination of all of your talent. Whereas for IT, it's like, oh, hey, I just have this one problem with this computer. You might help me fix it. And it's like, an hour of troubleshooting later, and people really don't want to pay for that. They just want to say, oh, well, thanks for the advice. Have a good one. Because they think it doesn't take anything from you. And yet, it's your time, it's your effort, it's your knowledge that you've built up and worked for a long time. So having that work-life balance is very, very important. Folks, please have the courage and have the ability to stand up for yourself and say, if I'm taking a day off, I am not accessible from home. And if I am accessible from home, please pay my contractor rate, which will be $60 an hour. Thank you so much. Or $120 an hour. Thank you so much for contacting me on my day off. Make it worth your time. Don't just roll over and let people have that. So, let's see. And let's see. One second. Computer America. Let's see. Craig would like me to say something. I just don't know what it would be. Let's see. It's a game we play. I have no idea what Craig's trying to say. But now let's go ahead and continue on here with the Computer America show. Boy, we are running out of time. Okay. Speaking of T-Mobile, we just talked about T-Mobile and Sprint. We'll do real quick with this one. For those of you who can think of T-Mobile and think of their logo, you may think of Hi, Craig. Hi, how are you doing? Good. Now, for those of you who can think of T-Mobile, you may think of their logo, of their logo and their CEO and, well, magenta. Magenta is what I'm trying to get at here. This is from a website called AdAge or AdAge. They're saying that T-Mobile says it owns exclusive rights to the color magenta. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to make a killing, go out and, well, trademark a color, because who knew that the visible light spectrum was completely trademark possible. But hey, that's what they've done. And not only did they do that, they've actually taken it to court and got another company to stop what it was doing because it was using the trademarked color magenta. So weird. Startup insurance provider Lemonade, and this happened in Germany, I believe, is trying to make the best of a sour situation after T-Mobile parent Deutsche Telekom claimed it owns the exclusive rights to the color magenta. New York-based. I thought it was Germany because of Deutsche Telekom, but no, this is actually happening in the U.S. Even worse. Wow, this is awful. They said that New York-based Lemonade is a 3-year-old company that lives completely online and mostly focuses on homeowners and renters insurance. The company uses a similar color to magenta. It says it's pink. For those of you watching the video portion, there it is, right there. They said that in its marketing materials and its website, but Lemonade was told by German courts that it must cease using its color after launching its services in that country, which is also home to T-Mobile owner Deutsche Telekom. Although the ruling only applies in Germany, Lemonade says it fears the decision will set a precedent and expand to other jurisdictions such as the U.S. and Europe as a whole. So a spokesperson for Deutsche Telekom confirmed that it had asked the insurance company to stop using the color magenta in the German market, and they said that Deutsche Telekom respects everyone's trademark rights, but expects others to do the same. Although Lemonade has complied with the ruling by removing its pink color from marketing materials in Germany, it's also trying to turn the legal matter into an opportunity. The company today began throwing some shade at social media, saying #FreeThePink, though a quick check on Twitter shows it's gained little traction thus far. So, yeah, trademarking a color, a very specific color, just for whatever reason. So, I really hope that doesn't become a thing. Obviously, Sprint could, take yellow, AT&T could take blue, Amazon could take a different shade of yellow, Google could take the rainbow. I just feel like colors don't deserve to be trademarked. So, yeah, and of course, as I said, as a quilter, yeah, think about it, as a painter. Although I will say, in kind of a tangent here, there was a situation where an artist, actually trademarked Vanta Black, and he prevented anyone else from using it. And Vanta Black was a trademark term. It was a very specific kind of black, and a lot of other artists did not like the fact that a fellow artist was trying to trademark a color on the visible spectrum. Or I guess because it was Vanta Black, a lack of color on a visible spectrum. So there was actually a rival artist who didn't like the idea whatsoever, so he actually trademarked another type of black. I think he calls it like Black 2.0 or something like that. And within the rules, with what he trademarked, he said that anyone is allowed to use Black 2.0 except for that one guy that tried to trademark Vanta Black. And they went through some legal disputes because I guess he didn't like the subtle jab at him, and it was actually upheld. So everyone can use that color except that one guy, as opposed to that one guy's color who no one can use. So there you go. Okay, so there's that one that was pretty weird. Let's go ahead and talk about real quick. Only time for a couple more articles here. CVS may start using drones. You heard that right. We've heard this. We've heard this promise from UPS for so long, and I'm hoping it finally actually happens because it would be so cool. CVS starts delivering prescriptions to homes via UPS drones, saying that it could help those who can't visit the pharmacy themselves. Though, if you've ever been to a CVS pharmacy, I don't think anyone has that kind of time to sit there and wait. So it didn't take long for UPS and CVS to start delivering prescriptions by drone. The two have confirmed that they've completed their first paid home deliveries of prescriptions, hauling medicine to 2 homes, one of which was a retirement community. So this isn't just like, hey, we would like to do this. No, this actually happened in Cary, North Carolina on November 1st. That's awesome. the cable and winch, and they said that the drones flew autonomously and lowered the package to the ground with a cable and winch, although there was a human operator ready to take control. So obviously there's someone sitting somewhere with a controller ready to take over, just like self-driving cars. And they said that this isn't the first paid delivery of any kind from UPS, although, like they said, this is the first medical drop that they've done. And they said that now it's flying in residential areas and delivering to everyday people. Alphabet's Wing is already delivering medicine as part of a pilot program, but that's limited to over-the-counter medication, gifts, and snacks. So everything except prescription medication, Alphabet's Wing is also doing. It's not exactly a booming business with just 2 deliveries, obviously a long way to go. However, it's still a significant milestone where just ordinary, everyday people, not within a trial group, were able to get their medicine from CVS. Sounds stupid cool. And there you go. So with that being said, obviously there are many ways to get your medication. Drones, though, they are slowly, ever so slowly, starting to do things, and it's probably not going to be within the next year or two. Please put away your drone shotgun so that you can, pick up free drone packages that fly overhead. It's going to take a while, but this step had to happen. Someone had to be the first, and it looks like this was one of the first. So, a step in the right direction. I think for one of our last articles here, we're going to talk about Disney Plus, and this is kind of like writing on the wall. Everyone should kind of see this coming. If you subscribe to Disney Plus, you should be aware that this is absolutely probably going to happen. This is from Engadget, saying that Disney Plus is boosting its library by running a Starz ad. You heard that right. An ad. Yeah, ad-free was supposed to be Disney's thing. But turns out we've already broken that promise. And it's just a little one. It's just a little legal, kind of kerfluffle that they had to do. So they said that when you first launch Disney Plus, after it becomes available next early week, you might find something that wasn't supposed to be there. And they said that the streaming service will show some subscribers an ad promoting premium TV channel Starz after they finish the initial sign-up process. Disney confirmed to Engadget that the one-time promo will be shown to some users once they finish signing up for the service and entering payment details. So think about that. After you're done signing up for Disney Plus, they're going to immediately plug you with Starz. They said that the ad is part of a deal. Here's the part. It's part of a deal that the company struck with Starz to reobtain the streaming licenses for some of its content, including Star Wars The Force Awakens. The company was forced to make the concession to ensure subscribers could watch movies like The Force Awakens at launch. Man, did Starz have Disney over a barrel on that one. So once you finish signing up for Disney, you won't see any other promos. Not everyone signing up will see the Starz ad. However, as The Verge notes, the company has said in April would be a wholly subscription-supported service. Even though they say that, that doesn't mean that there isn't the possibility that Disney would switch to an ad model to boost revenue as well. Even if their revenue is doing perfectly fine, hey, I still think this is going to happen. So, by the way, there's a correction here on this article that just came out a couple minutes ago. This post originally stated that the Starz ad would show up when customers initially logged into Disney Plus, but it's actually when some finish signing up for Disney Plus. There you go. So it was worth noting that Disney could have avoided this type of situation if it had been more conservative about licensing out its content for streaming. But then a lot of other companies like AT&T and NBC are in the same position as they try to get their most popular content back, including, for example, where NBC has said that subscribers of its upcoming NBC Universal service will have to wait until 2021 to get The Office onto its own streaming platform next year. And that's because I think Netflix is it's either Netflix or Hulu has an exclusivity deal with The Office until 2021, and then NBC Universal will come back with it. I'm not even going to get into the whole idea of why so many different content creators are getting into providing a subscription-based service. I don't like it. I think that a lot of people out there are just going to subscribe to one or two at a time, and then they're going to cancel the service as they run out of things to watch. They're going to cancel and then jump to another platform. There's not a lot of reason to stay with one if, even if you really wanted to. So I think it hurts the market overall. And there you go. Let's go ahead and let's see. So it costs money. I'll skip it. We spent enough on Dish. Obviously, a sub for every show on ear. Yeah, and I think with that being said, everyone, let's see. The music is wow. Okay, we're almost done with the show here. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. That's about all the time we have here for today. Again, check out computeramerica.com. We just gave it a refresh. If you haven't been able to check it out, we highly encourage you to do that. And hey, we'll be back here tomorrow. More Computer America. I believe we have the one, the only, Mr. Mike Cermak joining us tomorrow here on Computer America. So until then, have a great day. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.